Welcome back to the Branded Podcast, where we're all on this journey to find out about Jesus and share that journey with you. So, I am Tristan. That is my first name. I am so glad that is my name because that's what everybody calls me.
Among other things. And I'm Justin. And we're here today with Sam Goss.
What's up?
Now, do you like Sam or Sammy?
I do it doesn't matter. I go by Sam. I go by everything but my first name, which is Samantha. Nobody really calls me that except for
I know your name
my
was
parents
Samantha,
when I'm in trouble.
Yeah, I've always called you Sam.
Yeah,
So.
I go by Sam mostly.
Okay.
But Sammy's fine. Whatever.
Okay, so Sammy. Well, for those who don't know, you are the head chef when it comes to the media for Crossroads Cowboy Church. Just before we get into, just tell us kind of your resume.
Do you have a title? Are you like the social media specialist? What are you?
Wow, that's really kind, Justin. The title really is online admin.
Okay. Oh,
so
okay.
I handle everything online. 99.9% of what goes out is at least through me. But edit sermons, do social media posts, as well as run our church management system that we have. So yeah, I do a lot of online work.
Integral behind the scenes stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, and actually, our banter back and forth it has to make it through her editing process.
This is true.
Okay, it's been a learning curve for me. Okay, so again, as you know. This is kind of weird because you know the behind the scenes, you know where we're headed, you know what your desires. So you have certain things you want to talk about, and I'll be poking you and reminding you about those as we get there. But we like to start and find out about you and find out about when did your journey to the cross start and what it looks like.
Absolutely. So I was raised here in Greenville. I'm a Greenvillian.
Hey.
Or Greenville.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of us in church
No,
here.
there's not. I'm one of the...
Greenville.
Yeah, I'm from here, raised here. And I was raised in my grandpa's church. He was a pastor of a local church here. And he was a minister for over 50 years.
Wow.
And he recently retired. A couple years ago, he retired. So I have a strong... foundation in the Lord, and grew up, have two wonderful parents who raised me really well. Anything good comes from God, but it's also like my parents are amazing. And I have an awesome brother, 6 years older than me. He still feels like my best friend. So I have a very close, tight-knit family.
Brother.
One brother, yeah. I'm the youngest. And so, yeah, I have a really strong foundation I'm really thankful for. And I'll say this, like growing up in church was really, it's a blessing, like an absolute blessing. And to have my grandfather as my pastor for years is, invaluable. I am who I am because of him and his sacrifice.
Well,
and
isn't that interesting? Because I don't know if a lot of people caught the fact your last name is Goss.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going there here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You're going there. But so you are the daughter-in-law of the pastor here.
I am. Yeah. So my kids are growing up in their grandpa's church and experiencing that. And it's, it's like a full circle
There are no coincidences in a believer's life.
No, and it's so cool. And I'll tell you why. First of all, like I said, having a grandparent that is solid in the Lord is such a blessing, and having family that's solid in the Lord. But you got these bonus grandparents. I had so many wonderful men and women in my life growing up who just took me in, and they raised me. They were part of the raising. It takes a village for sure. And so to have my kids have that is just, it's a true blessing.
So at what age did you accept the Lord? And I know that you like most teenagers, you went through a real dark and lonely journey of rebellion against God. We'll get into that too. But tell us about your salvation experience.
I would love to. It's a very vivid memory. I was at a Sunday night church service. My grandpa was preaching, and he was not preaching anything like salvation or building you up or heaven or hell type of message. This was like him genealogy, like going through scriptures.
Oh, wow.
And I was sitting on the front row. We normally did first or second row because we were just there to support my grandpa. And I remember, I was 6 years old, by the way.
Okay, 6.
Just shy of 7 years old, but 6. And I remember I just had like this feeling of like, I need to go tell Grandpa, I need to be saved. And I like at that moment just had this light bulb moment of like, I'm not saved, and I was raised in church. And like I said, I was still young, 6 years old.
Well, hold on a second. You said something that most people don't get to say. You said, I got to go tell Grandpa. Yeah. And so there was a family connection before there was a family of God connection.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And remember, this is like mid-sermon, and he's not preaching, like he's not having an altar call or anything like that. And I like understood that at that age, and I like felt like my heart was going to be out of my chest. Yeah. Legit. And I was like, I can't do it in my head. I'm like, because, he's preaching and,
Oh, what are those moments?
Oh, yeah. And so I closed my eyes and I counted down from 3 and I said, I'm going to make a decision. And then when I get to 1, I'm going to stand up, whether I want to or not. And I counted down from 3.
Count down to salvation.
Got to do it. I really knew I had to do it. And I will say, like, it wasn't like a shove, but it was a real pull of the Holy Spirit. Okay. Like, this is the right thing. And I knew it was the right thing. And I understood I needed him. And so I just popped up and I walked up there on stage where my grandpa was going through the genealogy. And I whispered in his ears, and he put his arm around me and he said, Church. And he had like tears in his eyes. And he said, she just asked me to help her be saved. And all those bonus grandparents, like I told you, they all popped up and we went to the altar. And, from that moment on, my life had a foundation. My road was no longer bumpy. Like it was a firm foundation, not without its turns and, bad weather and stuff like that, but it laid that foundation. And I can't think of a single time ever since that moment that I felt alone or I didn't have him by my side. And so it was the moment that I accepted the Lord at a young age of 6 years old. And
so this was during, it wasn't a salvation message per se. He was probably going through the genealogies.
Yeah.
Did he have as hard a time pronouncing as Pastor Tim does?
Oh, I don't know if anybody struggles like Tim does.
We love you, Tim.
I was going to say that was 2 salvations for the congregation if he did.
Oh my gosh.
Because there's your salvation for eternity, but the rest of the congregation, hallelujah, you won't have to hear him pronouncing them. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Oh my goodness. No, that's hilarious. Yeah, sorry, Tim. You do struggle hard.
So you've got a great foundation. You've got a great framework laid.
Yeah.
Now, some folks do, some folks don't. How were the teenage years? Was there any kind of rebellion, or did you go through things in the teenage years? And when the opposite gender comes into play, how did those years go?
Should we take a moment of silence here?
I didn't have anything I didn't have wild years, I will say, or anything that was crazy. Part of my testimony is a life of a decision early on. And of course I had moments and where I questioned and I pushed limits and wondered if what I had experienced was real. And there's a time where you come in your life and you got to understand for yourself,
right?
And there was periods where I went through that, but I didn't have anything like where I left the Lord or anything like that. But one of the pivotal moments is I got really serious about my relationship with the Lord when I was in high school, because I knew that, first of all, when you're in high school, you're like, I gotta think about what I'm gonna do with my life. You
gotta find reality someplace because you're not finding it in high school.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I got serious about the Lord, and I started trying out another church for their youth group, because my grandpa's church at the time, they didn't have the kind of environment that I think that I was going to flourish in for youth. Loved his preaching and all that. Nothing against the church ever. But So I tried out a different church and was going to youth there, and I was really set on fire. I had like a rekindling, I would say. And I met Austin there.
Oh,
yeah, my husband, Austin, Pastor Tim's son.
So the Goss family was they were going to this other church.
Yes, they were.
And you didn't go there because of that.
No, I didn't.
Oh, just checking.
No, I did not.
Not everybody's like you, Tristan, going to church events to look for a significant other.
Well.
Tiny
that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
No, I didn't go. My best friend actually, like, they had a lot of events, and she's like, "Hey, why don't you come with me to this?" And so I'd asked my parents if I could go, and it was at that event. It was Doe River Gorge. I don't know if I know you may be familiar with it. I don't know about you, but it's like this outdoor, like, pond. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like, was it like a pond?
Doe River Gorge, there's a lot of things that go on there. There was an old railroad that went through the mountains there to get to some of these mountain communities, and they kind of turned it into a community thing. There's a camping area. There's a large pond. There's this. You can actually ride the railroad. They have a train that'll take you up through there. They have all kind of activities.
They got one of those.
It's kind of an activity center now.
Yeah, like, I think it's
you can find Justin on nerdhistory.com.
Captain of useless information.
I'm glad you knew, because obviously I did not. Yeah. But anyways, we went on a youth trip to that, and I splashed Austin with water, and that's how it all started.
That's how it usually starts.
Okay. Now, for those who don't know Austin, you're in the majority don't know Austin because he's not very talkative.
No.
Okay, so how did that go? Tell us about your little splashing event.
Well, I'm very outgoing.
Yes.
And Austin is not. Mm-hmm. He's not as much. Like, he's very kind and all that. But
man, a few words.
I just knew that there was like an interest, and I was like, I don't know if this guy. So I just thought, splash some water.
kind of to wake him up. I'm here over here.
But anyways, after that, we talked all day, and one of the things I told him about my grandpa being a pastor, and he's like, "Hey, my dad, is he's doing the worship at church and at the lake house is where it was, and talked about his dad thinking about being a youth leader, or just he liked to teach and all that, and so we really, because of my grandpa, it was like it was a moment that we could talk about, and we got to know each other. And
so how long was that courtship before you walked down the aisle?
Before I walked. Well, Austin asked me to be his girlfriend like 3 times before I said yes. But I'll say this: it's not because of Austin.
I didn't quite hear that. Austin tried 3 times.
Yeah.
And
for the title of boyfriend girlfriend before you accepted.
Yeah, and it wasn't because I didn't have interest in him, because I'm not somebody that wastes. I don't want to waste people's time. I was really serious. Okay. I told you I was getting really serious about the Lord, and I had previously I had other I had been in relationships
quote,
high school
dating.
And they were just I wanted to have I had standards, and I had actually wrote down on a list of a paper of all the things I wanted in a husband, and I just wanted to make sure I was being intentional. So I really, really liked Austin. In fact, I knew I was going to marry him. I knew it. I can't explain how I knew. I just knew it. But I was like, if it wasn't the right time, and I don't know.
How old were you when this
15.
Was Oh, I
was 15. Also,
you
16.
knew at 15 that you were going to marry Austin.
I did. I really did.
So then he asked you to be his girlfriend 3 times, but you're like, "Hey there, cowboy, slow down. I like you and all, but let's slow this thing down and keep God in it." And that's where okay. I'm
like
following.
I said, I knew that it was the right thing, but I also was like, if he is the one, he won't. When I say no, he's not going to run.
Right. If it's God's plan, it's God's plan.
Yeah, and he pursued.
He's steadfast.
He pursued me in a respectable manner. It was never anything. It was just natural.
Awesome.
And so he played a very critical. I don't know. He played a huge part in my growth in the Lord and His family. And
go ahead.
I have a very funny story. So
all right, go ahead.
Like I said, I knew I was going to marry him, and he knew that he was going to marry me. So he actually told Kathleen. Shout out Kathleen.
And that's his sister?
That's his sister. Yeah.
Okay.
He told her that I was going to be his last girlfriend, and she's like, "No,
And
she's
how old
not.
is he? How much older is he? Are you?
We are like 8 months apart. So he was 16 at the time. I was 15.
Okay, it's like John the Baptist and Jesus.
Sure.
Okay. They're far apart. Never mind. Go ahead.
So Kathleen was like, no, I don't think that she'll be your last girlfriend. And I guess there was a bet for $20.
Between who?
The sibling bet?
The siblings. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I wasn't a part of this bet. So Austin was like, bet. And if you know Kathleen now and you know me now, you know that we're like two peas in a pod.
Okay.
We're very similar. We got the
Kat's
same kind of.
awesome, yeah.
Yeah, she is. We got a very similar personality, very humor. We're identical
So
on that.
Austin won the bet.
Yeah.
But he's been losing money ever since.
No. So whatever.
There's that humor.
But I'll tell you this. Kathleen asked her to be my maid of honor in our wedding.
Okay.
And she gave a hilarious speech, as you can imagine. And then at the end of the speech, she brought up this story and was like, Austin, here's your $20.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
So it turned out really good. It's a
Yeah,
cool
it
thing.
did, yeah.
Awesome.
So I have like wonderful sister-in-law and brother-in-law, like all around. Even my brother's
Well,
married.
it's nice for you because you only had a brother for
Yeah.
sibling, and so now you
Yeah,
have
I got two sisters.
Two sisters. That's
yeah,
wonderful.
well, 3 because my brother got married, so I say I got 3 sisters now.
Wow.
So yeah, and
Awesome.
they're all great, and yeah, I'm really thankful. But yeah,
And I do think that the word respectful, respectable, and solid would be a good way to describe Austin from what I know of him.
Yeah, he's an awesome
absolutely.
guy.
Yeah, he really is. So I don't know, the Lord just kind of laid it out for me that he was going to be the one. And so during that time, like in high school, I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And I took like a test, and I guess it's like your skills and all that. And I got like 2 results back, and one was interior design, and I love it to this day. Like I love design.
Wow.
But there was just like in Greenville where I still wanted to stay. I really didn't want to move away from home. There's just really not at that time.
No, because in Greenville,
Yeah.
it's whether you keep the livestock in the house or out. That's the design thing.
interesting.
Yeah.
What?
Boo.
I know.
Boo.
And I mean, like there wasn't that much opportunity here for
Okay.
that. So, and then the other thing was teaching. And I thought, you know what? I could make a difference there. And I love children. So I went to school, got my degree, early childhood education, and I became a teacher. My first year of teaching was 2019 to 2020. And if you know where I'm going with this, that was the year that
everything
global
just,
pandemic, and didn't even get to finish out my first year of teaching because of that. I actually got pregnant with
It was a local
Addie.
private school, correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, Christian school.
Yeah.
Super great experience. And I love that I was able to do what I love, but also really make a difference and show the love of God.
And so then motherhood came along right at the end of that false start with your
I got
teaching.
pregnant and during the pandemic, and it was so rough. Every doctor's visit, like you couldn't bring anybody with you. Like
Yeah.
first ultrasound, I didn't have Austin with me. I had to wear the mask, and even the hospital. It was just a very different experience all the way around because you were allowed one person, and of course Austin would be the one person I would want, but still it was a time that felt very robbed of the normal experience.
As every situation. Well, this is the first, I've heard a lot of situations during COVID, the graduates who couldn't walk across the stage, the nursing homes where people couldn't visit, but I hadn't heard the perspective of somebody who was pregnant during that time, what it was like.
It was crazy. And everything about my pregnancy, I got to take leave. I'll say that. I talked to my doctor because whenever we were going into the 2020 to 2021 school year, I was teaching pre-K. So we're talking 4 and 5-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And if you are experienced with children, or you work, they bring something to school, a different sickness all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so
they're petri dishes with legs.
yes, they are. Oh my goodness.
Yes, that's a good
they
definition.
sneeze in your face, and they're the cutest things in the world, and you'll do anything for them. But So being pregnant, your immune system is kind of suppressed a little bit. And so I talked to my doctor, and I was like, with COVID, there was no studies at the time about how COVID affected pregnancy.
Right.
So she was like, if you are able to take leave, I would recommend it. So I followed the directions. We were able that year to do that. So I was able to just take that year off. And be really just a help to Austin
Oh,
and
yeah.
to our home.
Yeah.
And prepare for Addie. And then I had Addie in February of 2021. And
Just a curious question. Did you manage to avoid COVID while you were pregnant, or did you end up getting COVID?
I think I did avoid it. Yeah, I did. I didn't get it till after I was pregnant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've had COVID. Have you had COVID?
I've had COVID 4 times, if you believe the tests. No symptoms with like 2 of those. So
No symptoms.
No symptoms.
Yeah, I'm either asymptomatic or naturally immune. I
Really?
never.
Yeah.
I was teasing my wife, and she hated me doing it. She got it several times. She got really bad, but she had her thermometer, and I said, I'll use it. I put it in after she's used it.
And then never got sick.
Nah, I never got it.
Wow, that's great. I mean, it was such a crazy time and serious time, but gosh,
I think
it's really cool.
One of the ways my autoimmune issue that we talked about during my podcast was kind of a blessing is your immune system is actually overactive. It's attacking your own body.
Oh, that's right.
Well, you would think that would play into, something like COVID, as your immune system's already overactive. Maybe it would help you. Like I said, I had it several times, and most of those I didn't even have symptoms, so I don't know, asymptomatic. So if that played a part or not, but I just count it as a blessing and move
absolutely.
on.
Absolutely. I was really thankful that I was able to stay healthy, and that was part of it. Being able to be home. And Austin was a great provider. He worked extra, so I didn't have to. Yeah, and so that was a real blessing in my life. But I said this earlier about my foundation. I really take the walk with the Lord I have almost like a road.
It is. The road of salvation.
It was. I had it paved early on. Like I had that solid ground to stand on, and like I said, it wasn't without its challenges and without its curvy roads and bad weather and bumps in the road.
Yeah.
And probably one of the biggest things that I would say that I overcame in my life was I had postpartum depression after I had Addie.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier, and so what you've been setting up to is an idyllic, that would be the word, marriage, that your husband is one who actually got to help shape who you are in the Lord, which is a rare thing. Yeah. And now you're having children, and you got your teaching certificate. COVID happens, is a bummer. But now something happened that kind of shook your world, it sounds like.
Yeah. So,
was your pregnancy a normal pregnancy, or how did that go?
Yeah, I had a very healthy pregnancy. Nothing went wrong. Praise the Lord. I was sick with
the normal
sickness. Yeah. But overall, it was good. And I went to my normal 40-week checkup, and I remember the doctor put the Doppler on me to listen to her heart rate, and normally it was a quick, all right, it's 154 or something like that, and I just remember watching her, and it just took forever to for her to say something, and then she was like, all right, I want you to come back around 3:00. You're gonna have this baby today. And so apparently I was having contractions, and I didn't really know, and so went to the hospital, and like I said, very different experience. I didn't have to wear a mask the whole time or anything like that, but Austin was, that was the only one. So if having your first baby, it's just something to be not really have your mom with you, I still wanted to have that moment with just Austin and I, but to be able to have some support from both my mom and my mother-in-law Jen, would be something that I would
have to
desire.
make a decision to pick.
So it was just 2 newbies in there, me and Austin, and so labor was going fine, and all of a sudden, I was halfway, I'll say halfway, I was 5 centimeters, and all of a sudden, Addie's heart rate was going sky high, I'm talking 200s, and that's very normal whenever you're close to delivering, because the contractions are pushing them down and all that, and but it's not normal when you're not super close. And so they tried a bunch of different things. The nurse came in, and she sat beside my side forever, and they moved me positions, they cut back on medicines and stuff like that, see if there was any change, and nothing. And there was at one point where they lost her heart rate altogether.
Wow.
And I guess there's like a button or something on the bed. You probably know about this, like where it kind of puts you back like flat. And so they did that, and they were trying to like see if she was okay. And my doctor came in, and she's like, I so don't want you to have a C-section for your first baby, but we need to make a decision for the both of you. And she's like, and the C-section is the right one. So I was like, okay.
Was it her position, or what was going on with Addie that caused
So
that?
after the C-section, it was found that like her position, like she was just getting like hung up on my pelvic bone.
Okay, she couldn't get turned around.
Like it was just like a weird situation, and every time I was having contraction, it was just putting her in distress.
Okay.
So they wheeled me back, to the OR, and I just remember at that moment, I'm just going to preface this. I'm a very type A personality. I have a plan for my plans. And, COVID already had
wiped out a bunch of them.
And then, I wanted a healthy baby more than anything. But it's still in that moment of like humanity to know that, okay.
Wait, this isn't my plan. I planned on.
Most women have, I'll just say most because I don't know if all, but a lot of women have this idea whenever you have a baby to like hold your baby instantly and just have that bonding. And, being wheeled back to the OR, Austin was not by my side. It was just, was a nurse, and he's getting prepped because he can't be in there until like a certain period.
Yeah.
And so I'm in there with a bunch of strangers really, and one amazing nurse that I loved, but a lot of unknowns. Is Addie going to be okay? Am I going to be okay?
Yeah.
Where's Austin? And does our family know? Because Austin's rushing around, it was just a lot. And anyways, the C-section itself was really traumatic for me, really traumatic. But to hear her cry finally, that was such a relief and a blessing, and got to see her, and Austin held her. And most of you probably don't know this unless you've had one, but they actually your arms are pinned down. So
they have a curtain, and you can't.
They have Velcro on your arms, I guess. So in case you go into a medical emergency or whatever, you don't flail.
It's not a time you need to be moving.
So
that's just shy. It's just shy of handcuffs. Yeah.
It was so much mentally. And then after she was born, they cleaned her up, and then they got me all fixed up and all that. And then I went to a what do they call a recovery area, and I was by myself for
because you just had fairly major surgery, so
but I was like, is my baby okay? I'm in pain, and it just was such a, it felt I feel like I was really robbed,
very isolated.
Isolated.
Yeah, and in that time, that was the moment that questioning really set in, and a lot of fear and depression. That was definitely the start of it. And they took me back to my room, and I got to hold Addie and all that, and it was beautiful. I would do the same situation over and over again to have her, no doubt. But I was why? I'm holding her, and I'm she's the most beautiful thing in the world. This is the most happiest I've ever been, but also, why am I not happy? It's such a weird feeling to know that you've got this baby, what I prayed for, but also something in your mind is just not letting you get there.
So you had kind of a disconnect from the emotions that you were supposed to have.
Yeah.
Do you think that the isolation and the insuredness of the situation planted that seed for postpartum depression?
I definitely played a huge part, because when I was by myself, I had a lot of thoughts going on, the whole situation itself, I still believe I would struggle, because I said, I didn't it was not my plan, nothing about that went my way.
Right.
And so I know I would have struggled with it afterwards, but that period of being by myself and just being able to not have somebody speaking in at the time, directly to be that definitely played a part in how big it was. And, weeks went by after having Addie, and things did not get better. I would call my mom in the middle of the night and other trusted people, and I was just crying my eyes out. And I was like, does God not love me? I've served him my whole life. Basically, I've been faithful to him. I feel when I pray that the opposite happens, and I'm like, is he mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Why did he let this happen to me? And I really, really struggled because after a C-section, you've had like a major abdominal surgery, and simple tasks like reaching over here to grab the baby uses your core muscles. You stepping up over a bathtub ledge uses your core. So everything about the recovery was like, I just was not prepared at all for it. So like there was so many different things that played a part in that, but that middle of the night feedings and all that, and it was just breeding grounds. The isolation was just breeding grounds for the enemy planning stuff, and not just the enemy, but me. Like just overthinking or just allowing things to come in. So eventually with time and with prayer, I was able to get out of it. And, I still don't understand exactly why things played out the way they do, other than, I've met some really phenomenal women throughout the years who've like just mentioned in passing, oh, I had this terrible C-section, and I'm like, oh, I did too, and it's opened up avenues to speak to others who've went through it. And I'm also like super mindful after a woman has birth, or to just reach out and be like, hey, if you need somebody, I'm here, because I know the trench life that is, right after you have a baby. And, I chalk it up all to be that the Lord he opened that avenue, even though I didn't ask for that certain situation. It's opened up areas for me to minister to other women who've been through it. And postpartum depression is one of those taboo topics. That's what I was fixing to say. Because like I said, it's the most, you're supposed to be joyous that you had this baby, and don't get me wrong, like Addie is one of the joys of my life, but it was such a real thing at the same time. Like two things can be true. And so to be able to say that I've been through it and I'm on the other side of it I feel like another part of my ministry.
As you're sharing, I'm thinking about, we like to have a reason. We like to go, well, why did this happen? And how can I fix it and so that we can get everything stored away the way it's supposed to be in our mind. The mechanics are an easy thing. You went through this, went through that. Your body is producing hormones, on and on and on. But the spiritual aspect of it, I don't think we give enough credence to the fact that there's a spiritual transaction happening. God formed this little one in you and knit him together in your womb. From the very get-go, it's spiritual and physical. And sometimes when we try to take things that you admitted you're kind of the alpha in nature, and you like to have everything lined up in an order and understand it so that it sits right. But spiritual is a whole avenue that we can't fully comprehend. We don't fully comprehend the transaction of the cross. And we can look at all the mechanics, we can look at the agony, we can try to replay it, but we don't. We will. But right now, we don't know exactly all of the things that happen. We see a little bit of it. So it may be the same thing with you. Absolutely. In that spiritual realm with the...
And I'm glad you brought that up, because like I said, very type A personality, and I try to be type G now, which is go with God. Like, you can have a plan. There's nothing wrong with having plans and making plans, but it can't be an idol in your life. And it was for a lot of years.
And it's a safety net, too. You find a lot of comfort there.
It makes you feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
So thank you for coming on and talking about something that you're absolutely right. You touched on it. Postpartum depression is one of those taboo things that I think women just silently suffer with. Because they're so unsure of how they're supposed to feel about it. And it's supposed to be a joyous time, and nobody understands, especially guys. And a lot of women who haven't went through it don't understand. So it's nice to see that you're talking about something, and there's people out there who, you can talk with their folks if you need to. Because it's a very real thing, and it's very difficult to navigate.
And I actually, I had another baby about 10 months ago. And my plan, I'll tell you another story.
Okay, here's another.
My plan.
We're going to do it right this time.
I really because of my first experience with the C-section to postpartum depression, I was like, I really don't want to have another C-section, and talked with my doctors.
There's a percentage you're more likely to have a C-section if you've had one. Is that right?
Nowadays, it's not so much.
Okay.
It used to be like once a C-section, always a C-section.
Yeah.
And so I talked to my doctors early on with my last pregnancy, and I was a good candidate to try for a normal, like a natural delivery, and had to like meet certain qualifications and all that. And so I had a word for the year. The Lord gives me a word for the year.
Okay.
And 2024 was trust. And I was like, all right, I'm going to trust in the Lord for this delivery to go my way.
Okay.
And then I had this like creeping feeling.
Okay,
that,
the seeds are coming back.
What if it's trusting in the Lord for a plan that's not yours? And I started to think, the best things that have happened in my life have been things that I've not planned. And, the Lord sees the bigger picture, ultimately. I see a very narrow scope, like you were saying. And, I may not fully understand ever in this life. I may have, like, little pieces that I think, okay, this could be why and this could be why. But back to the story, I was going to try to have a natural delivery, and they said, okay, you must go into labor on your own before like a certain date.
Yep.
So 41 weeks was what they gave me. And there was some other things. Oh, the baby's like what they estimate, and all that. And so all these things were looking good. And I thought for sure, I mean, you've seen me, I was very big, like with my second pregnancy, very big. And everybody's like, you're going to have that baby early. And I'm like, yeah, I am, like I'm going to have this baby normally and not go through it. And, man, my due date came around and that baby was not here. And we didn't know the gender at the time. So
yeah, you decided to wait on the gender.
Yeah. So
castor oil and off-roading.
I did all the things. Oh my gosh. Yeah, if you're a female, you know all the things that I've done. But for those listening, I mean, it includes like drinking stuff, bouncing on a ball. It's just I did all the things. And I after my due date, I was like, you know what, Lord, I had it settle in my spirit. If you want this to happen my way, you're going to let it happen. And if you don't, you're not going to let it happen. So I decided, like, I'm just going to enjoy.
Just let go?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I really let go. And they had me schedule a C-section past my due date. So if I didn't go into labor, they already had one set in stone. And that day came, went to the hospital. And I was like, okay, having the C-section. And I was actually on they were so behind that day. I had scheduled for 10 a.m. So I had to be there at like 5 a.m. All the family was there. So it was so wonderful. I had so much family there at this time around, and it was just so encouraging. And then, like, they kept getting pushed back, and I started having contractions, and they were telling me, like, you're having some contractions, girl. And I was sitting there silently with everybody in the room, and I'm like, what do I do? Like, I could be in labor, like they wanted me to go in labor before then. And I prayed silently, and I was like, God, tell me what I need to do. Do I need to speak up, or do I need to trust in your plan for the C-section? And I felt like it should be the latter. So I sat there quietly, and I decided the Lord knew best, and he was going to have it happen however he needed to have it happen. And so my time came for the C-section, which it didn't happen until like 3:30. And by the way, you have to like fast. Like you can't have any food or water past midnight.
It's a surgery.
And I'm pregnant.
And you're hungry.
And I'm like, I have blood sugar issues. So like I was like not feeling it.
And
Oh
pregnant.
my gosh. It was a day. But going back to the OR, and I'm like, I know this is what the Lord wanted. This is the plan, to have a healthy baby. At the end of the day, nothing's more important.
Right. Yeah.
No plan of mine is more important than that. And they're counting down. They're like, all right, about 1 minute, and you're gonna know the gender and all that. And finally, here comes the time, and I hear them say nuchal times 1, which means cord wrapped around neck. And then I hear them say, okay, there's meconium. So meconium is like when the baby is in distress and poops in the womb. Yeah. And so that's like 2 strikes, right? 2 things that can sometimes cause for a woman in labor to already go for a C-section. Sometimes, not all the time. But in that moment, I was like, all right, Lord, you knew that.
Thank you, Lord.
Yeah, you knew
for
that.
doing what. Yeah.
And it was such a peace. And then they lifted Slade up, my son, to Austin, and was like, it's a boy. And it was the most beautiful experience. It was a night and day from my first. This moment between Austin and I was the most valuable moment I've ever had in my life, because I was so anxious right before, because I one thing about having the second C-section with a terrible first is you know what's coming. Like when you know in your first, you have nothing to expect. And I knew about the recovery, and I knew what I struggled with last time. And I was just crying on the table, and Austin was like this close to my face, and we were just quoting scripture to each other. And I was like, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And I said, he's an ever-present help in trouble. We were just going through, and it was, the Lord was so in the room. I had a wonderful doctor who prayed with us before we went back. He knelt down at the end of the bed, and the Lord was in it. And even when your plans don't go the way you want them to go, the Lord has something ready for you. And that's something else about that road. With that foundation that was laid early in my life, I know that destination is for good. Even if I can't see super far ahead, it goes back, one of my favorite scriptures is 2 Corinthians 5:7, before we walk by faith and not by sight.
Right.
And so to know that regardless, at the end of the day, that the Lord is with you and he has a plan for good.
Yeah.
For good, not for your specific things that your carnal things. Sometimes he does. Sometimes he does.
Yeah. Even in Romans 8:28. All things work together for good.
For the good.
But if you look at in the language, it's to those loving God, he works all things together for good. Yeah. And we often say it's for our good.
Yeah. Right.
And we say, it's going to work out good for me.
Yeah.
No, it's for his good.
Right.
And his good is our good too.
Yes.
So
absolutely. And that was a big moment in my life, and he answered a different way. But I've had other moments where the Lord answered things that are very simple. But the Lord's he's never left my side. And I have a story that it's the most Holy Spirit moment. It can't be anything else but the Holy Spirit. Very, very silly. Okay. Addie was turning 2, I think. Okay. And I needed to go pick up a birthday cake from a lady that I bought cakes from. And she does it in her home. And so you have to go pick up the cake. And it had been over a year since I had been there. And I was messaging her. She's like, do you need my address? And I'm like, no, girl, I've been there before, And I'm driving, and I make a turn that's, I don't know where I went, but I know it wasn't the right place. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I don't have this girl's address. I'm supposed to be there now.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that.
I pulled over, it was in the boondocks, basically. I pulled over in this, it was an old church. I think it was an abandoned church parking lot. And I was like, Lord, help me get there. I'm I don't know where I'm at. I don't know where it's at. And I kid you not, the address popped in my head. And I was like, so I opened up my phone, typed in on GPS. I was like, that seems right. And so when I clicked go, and I'm looking at it as I opened it up, and I was like, that looks right. So I'm just going to go try it. And I literally, it took me to her exact house. And I'm telling you, I didn't have her address in my phone. I didn't have it in our messages. I had been there prior, and the Lord just dropped that information. And I know it's something very silly, he didn't need to, but he showed me all throughout my life that he cares about the big things. He cares about the little things, but ultimately he's with me.
Yeah.
And it was really cool.
Lee says from a hangnail to a hurricane. Yeah. That's very true. Nothing's too silly. God cares.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. That's an incredible testimony, and I the pain, the trauma, that kind of subsides. But if you're anything like me, I pray you're not. But if you are, if you are, you remember God's faithfulness in the details, like you were just sharing with the address. That we tend to, sensationalize the big things. But we live most of our life in the little things,
little
appreciating
Yeah.
just the gentle breeze, the smell of a flower, whatever it is. And so thank you.
Yeah.
Any concluding words?
Well,
Go ahead,
Justin.
Justin.
You left me hanging. How did things go with the second pregnancy? Did you have any postpartum after Slade?
No, I did not.
Well, praise the Lord.
No, I really, I can't say like total healing, but I really believe that the Lord allowed me to use my prior experience and to see like how He'd walked with me through it last time. And then also take knowledge and apply it to the future, like what I learned.
Yeah.
And no, I didn't struggle with it at all. I really felt the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah, it was such an answered prayer, and it was a blessing because I really didn't want to have another C-section, and the rest of my babies will be C-sections for here on out now, because there's like your scar, the
percentage increases.
It becomes dangerous, you know.
Austin, you hear that? She said the rest of her babies. Just put that in her.
He does. Hey, he's fine. He tells me however many I want, so he's a trooper. But no, I didn't struggle. I'm really thankful that the Lord was able to give me that peace afterwards, you know, and it just shows that He's there.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, if you had any words of wisdom, any words of insight as somebody who's been through that, speak to those folks at home, the ladies that maybe they're pregnant, considering getting pregnant, and you know that's always something that can happen, and we want to rebuke it and we want to call it out. But if they do end up going through or have been through something like that, what's your advice for them? What do you recommend?
Encapsulate it.
My advice is to reach out to somebody, to have one person that you confide in and be honest. It's a very crazy feeling. You may know what's right in your head, but you don't feel it, and it's really hard to get past that. But don't do it alone. Rely on the Lord. Repeat scriptures. Listen to things that uplift you. And most importantly, just trust in the Lord that He's got this. It's temporary. Don't sit in it. Get a friend, grab him alongside of you, and if you need a friend, you can reach out to me, and I will walk with you through it.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Awesome. Go ahead and close us out, Justin.
All right, folks, you know the drill. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, share. All that makes a difference in the algorithm, and we want to put God's message out there to the internet. So, anything else, guys?
I'm going to do this.
You're going to do this? I'll do that too.
Oh, you want to do that?
Yeah.
Then
all right.
Double wave.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Sam, for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
All right.